All right, the main focus of this video is to keep it simple and easy. We want to look at fungi, and then if you see fungi, if you have an older textbook, you can see myocota. That's an older form of talking about fungi. So when we talk about fungi, there are things we need to look at. We need to look at the number one, the definition. Definition of fungi. Number two, we need to look at the examples. The examples of fungi. Number three, we need to look at the structure. The structure of fungi. Number four, we need to look at the classification. The classification of fungi. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, need to look at their mode of reproduction. Reproduction in fungi. Number 5 or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So number 6 now, we look at the uses of fungi. Now, these are the items we'll be looking at in this video. We want to define fungi. How do we define fungi? You need to understand that fungi belongs to the domain or the super kingdom. The super kingdom Eukaryota. We have super kingdom Eukaryota. We have super kingdom Prokaryota. We have super kingdom Archaea. Now, these are the domain or the super kingdoms that we have. Under the Eukaryota, we have the fungi, we have the protista, we have the plantae, we have the animalia. All right. Now, what we are discussing is for us to define fungi, which is the first thing, we need to look at it or examine it based on the domain or the super kingdom. And we find out that it belongs to the Eukaryota, organisms that have true nucleus and double membranous organelle. Prokaryotas, organisms that lacks true nucleus and lacks double membranous organelle. But our focus is on fungi. And then we have noticed that it belongs to the Eukaryota. So first, our definition is that fungi is a eukaryotic. That's where we start from, eukaryotic. Now, prior to the time of 1969, before 1969, fungi was classified as plant. Now, after 1969, which was the time we went to the moon, fungi was no longer classified as plant. It was given a separate kingdom. So fungi, let me clean up here now. Fungi is not the same thing as plant. Fungi is not plant, plant is not fungi. Now, after the 1969, fungi was given a separate kingdom, which is known as the kingdom fungi. So, now, why is it not called plant anymore? Number one is their genetic makeup. Why? Why is fungi not plant? One is the genetic makeup. Two is that the cell wall of fungi contains chitins. The cell wall of fungi contains chitins, but the cell wall of plant contains cellulose. For plants, let me write somewhere here, I'll clean it later. Fungi cell wall is chitins. Plant cell wall is made up of cellulose. Fungi cell wall is made up of chitins. While plant cell wall, this is the cell wall of fungi. Now, another thing that differentiates fungi from not being a plant is that fungi is non-photosynthetic. All right, fungi is non-photosynthetic. That is, they are not able to produce their own food. Now you can see that after 1969, fungi was given a separate kingdom. So let's go back to the definition. Fungi is a eukaryotic, non-photosynthetic, fungi is a eukaryotic, non-photosynthetic, and then, non-phototropic. I'll explain what this means. Non-photosynthetic, non-phototropic. What I mean by non-phototropic is that, phototropism is when plants move in direction to sunlight. Now, fungi is non-photosynthetic and they are non-phototropic. Also, they are non-photosynthetic, non-phototropic living organism. Living organism that has a rigid cell wall made up of chitins. So fungi is a eukaryotic, non-photosynthetic, non-phototropic living organism that has rigid cell wall made up of chitins, and they belong to the kingdom fungi. They belong to kingdom fungi. All right, now that's the definition of fungi. Now, what are the examples of fungi? Through the characteristics or features of fungi, we can actually define fungi. Now, you can use other definitions or other characteristics to define fungi, but more probably, just say fungi is a eukaryotic organism, we know that. It's non-photosynthetic, that's what differentiates it from plant, we know that. And it is non-phototropic, which means it doesn't respond to light, we know that. And it's a living organism that has cell wall, and the cell wall is made up of chitins, not cellulose cell walls like the plant, we know that. And then when I say it belongs to the fungi kingdom. Now, what are the examples of fungi? Examples now. Examples of fungi, we have the mushroom, we have the mold, we have the yeast, we have the mocha, we have the rhizopus, and then we have the mildews, etc. A lot of those. Now, have you ever, if you buy a loaf of bread, when you get a loaf of bread, you just leave it outside and allow it to stay there for a long time. You'll find out that the loaf of bread, or when you cook you cook some food, don't want the food for like 3, 4, 5, 6 days. The 6, 7 days, you begin to find something like a white appearance, a whitish puffy appearance matter on that food. Now, that for the one of bread, which was one concerned about, now those white puffy appearance on that bread is called bread molds. It's called what? Bread molds. Now, that's an example of fungi. Now, those are parasitic fungi, but also we'll talk about fungi like the yeast. The yeast, like the Saccharomyces ovarum, that is used for the bottom fermentation, and Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that is used for the top fermentation in brewing companies. So these are also important. So all these are fungi. And then we look to another thing, which is the structure of fungi. Hope I can remember, because I've cleaned it up, though we'll fix it in. Now, under the structures of fungi. So this is where we are now. We'll deal with the examples. Now, we're going to pick just 2 examples. We'll pick this, and then we'll pick this. We're going to draw a diagram of the rhizopus and the diagram of the mushroom. Now, you should be able to draw the diagram of the rhizopus and mushroom without looking at your textbook. So let's look at how to draw it. Number one is to know that the rhizopus contains or has a structure like this. All right, like this. All right, let me take it up again. Now, this is the rhizopus. Let me put the hyphen. Now, the rhizopus contains, number one, this is called let me label it towards the side. This is called the hyphen. This is the hyphen. The hyphen is here, down here. Now, on top of here is the stolon. Now, over here is the sporangium. Over here is the sporangiospore. Sporangiospore. All right. Now, over here is the sporangiospore. Okay. This one is sporangiospore. All right, sporangiospore. All right, now these are the arrangements or the labeling of the fungi. Now let's look at the mushroom. Now, over here is the pilus. Over here is the gills. Over here is the septa. This stipe. Over here is the hyphen. All right. Now, these are the label of mushroom. This is a mushroom. Why? This is a rhizopus. A rhizopus. All right. I believe this is the well-labeled diagram of a mushroom and a rhizopus. You can also confirm that, all right? Now, meanwhile, this diagram came out in one of the UTME exams, and then they were asked, what is the part labeled II? So this is pilus. If this one is gills, then hyphen, and then the staple. Now, over here is the spirogium. This one is spirogium. This one is sporangiospore, all right? Then, this is the stolon, this is the hyphen. So we need to know that. Now, under the structures of the fungi, number one is that fungi is multicellular. Some of those are multicellular, and some of those are unicellular. Multicellular fungi are the mushroom, while the unicellular fungi are the yeast. All right. Now, this fungi has hyphen. You can see hyphen here. Now, let's talk about the hyphens of fungi. Now, the hyphens of fungi is divided into two. We have the septates and the aseptates. The septates and the aseptates. This is also called the conocytes. Conocytic cell wall. All right. Now, The difference between the septate and the aseptate or the conocytic cell wall fungi is that this guy over here is cross cell wall, has a cross cell wall. It has a cross cell wall. This guy over here has no cross cell wall. All right. Now, having said that, for this guy, the diagram to have, or the diagram looks like this, something like this. All right, you can see the cross cell walls there. Now look at this one, it has no cross cell wall. All right, now the septate has a cross cell wall, the non-septate has no cross cell wall. That's the major difference between the two. And the hyphae combines together to form the mycelium. When they are joined together, they form the what? The mycelium. This is the vegetative part of that, the vegetative part of the fungi, which is the hyphae. When they combine together, they form the mycelium. So let's move to the next thing. The next thing is their cell walls. The cell walls of fungi, I tell you again, is made up of chitins. The cell wall is made up of chitins and is also made up of polysaccharide. Made up of chitins and polysaccharide. Another characteristic, another structure, the features or the characteristics of the structure of the fungi is that the cell wall is made up of chitins and polysaccharide. Meanwhile, another characteristics or feature of the structures of fungi is that it has a dense, clear nucleus. If you're writing, it has a dense, clear nucleus that contains chromatide phyes. All right, that contains chromatide phy. And then another one is that also fungi, the cell wall. All right, the cell wall contains a protoplast. The protoplast undergo cellular differentiation to form the cytoplasma, the cell membrane, and a lot of those. All right. Now, we're not want to look at, I don't know what I wrote here now, the classification of fungi. That's what I wrote there. How do we classify fungi? We classify fungi based on two things. Number one, my pens are fainting. Number one, okay, based on spore formation. Let's call this one A. Then B, based on nutrition. Now let's pick up the first one. For the A, based on spore formation, we can talk about the zygomacytes. We can talk about the we'll talk about zygomacytes. We can talk about the ascomycetes. We can talk about the basidiomycetes. We can talk about the, which one again? Let me write it over here. Deuteromycetes. So this one we talk about. Okay, the zygomycete, ascomycete, basidiomycete, and deuteromycete. There are still lots of those also. Now, this classification is based on the spore formation. But if it is based on the mode of nutrition, then we have to talk about another thing. If it's based on the mode of nutrition, which is B, then we talk about the saprophytic, we talk about the parasitic, then we talk about the symbiotic. Now, when we talk about the saprophytic, we're talking about these organisms, fungi, that feed on dead organic matters. And examples of those organisms that feed on dead, or fungi that feed on dead organic matters, is the rhizopus. Let me put it here. Let's call this one A. Let's call this B. Let's call this C. Now, examples of A is the aspergillus, the rhizopus. All right, so this is the two examples that we're going to give you. There are still more examples of those. Now, for the parasitic, we have the Pusiania. All right, so the Pusiania is an example of the parasitic fungi. This is a parasite that lives off on the body of the host. So you can find, apart from this Pusiana, you can find every or any other examples to it. Then we have the one that is very vital for plants. So this is C, which is the okay, let me spell it well now. Now, all these biological names, wonderful name. All right, mycorrhiza. All right, the mycorrhiza is found in plants. All right, it helps plants to assimilate or to absorb nutrients from the soil. It enhances the ability of plant to absorb nutrients from the soil. You get that now? Why the plant supplies the fungi, mycorrhiza, with some molecule, some sugar molecule or carbohydrate molecule to keep the mycorrhiza and the plant in a symbiotic relationship. The plant benefits from the fungi and the fungi benefits from the plant. Now we're looking at the characteristics of fungi. So this is the classification. We're going to leave the zygomycetes, the ascomycetes, and the basidomycetes, and then the deuteromycetes for you to go and find the features and characteristics of those. Now, let's go to the next one. The next thing there is the, what am I talking about now? The features, general features of fungi now. The general features of fungi. Now, number one is that fungi is eukaryotic. Are you writing? Eukaryotic. Can't be writing on the board because of time. Fungi is eukaryotic. All right. Non-photosynthetic, non-motile, multicellular, which is mushroom, and unicellular organism. That's the general feature. Number two is that fungi, take this one in. Fungi stores starch as glycogen. Fungi stores starch as glycogen. Take this one in. Fungi is found in moisture environment. Fungi is found in moisture environment. All right. Now, number four is that fungi, apart from being found in moisture environment and stores starch as glycogen, fungi also is saprophytic. That's general characteristics, although we have talked about that now, is saprophytic majorly or mainly, and some are parasitic, while some are also symbiotic. All right. Now, fungi also, we want to look at another picture. Yeah, it lacks true roots, stems, and leaves. Fungi lacks true roots, stems, and leaves. So that are the features or the general characteristics of fungi. Now we move to the other one, reproduction in fungi. Now, for the reproduction in fungi, what should come to your mind is that fungi undergoes the asexual and the sexual reproduction. This is called the anamorph. This is called the telomorph. Okay, anamorph and then the telomorph. All right, now the fungi, if it's on its vegetation, if fungi is undergoing vegetative reproduction, in the vegetative reproduction of fungi, fungi tends to undergo reproduction by fragmentation, by spore formation, and binary fusion. I take that again. It can undergo reproduction, asexual reproduction, vegetative reproduction by spore formation, fragmentation, and binary fusion. Now, we can also talk about the sexual reproduction. For the sexual reproduction, we'll talk about, now listen, just pay attention. If you're talking about, let's call this A, let's call this B. Now, for the A, the organs that is involved in this reproduction is the zoospores. Are you getting it now? For asexual reproduction is the zoospores. Now, for the sexual reproduction is the oospores. You see, there's a difference between this, the zoospores and the oospores. Okay, you can also talk about the ascospores. You can talk about the basidiospores and a lot of those. All right, but over here we call them the zoospores. There are other names for it. Okay, zoospores. Okay, yeah. Sporangiospores. All right, so this is what we need to know. The difference is that the zoospores or the sporaziospores is involved in asexual reproduction, which is known as anamorph. Now, the oospores, ascospores, basidospores are involved in sexual reproduction. You need to pick that. Now, finally, we talk about the uses of fungi. We're going to leave that for you to find and give us the answer on the comment section. And if you have any question or you have any topic you want us to talk about in medical microbiology or biochemistry or anything on bioscience, you drop it on the comment section. We would like to attend to you. Thanks for watching. If this video has helped you at all, give it a thumbs up and you are always free to follow for more.